Okay, so let's take a look at setting up the page-to-page behaviors to make this actually work. And this is where we get into the requirement of passing parameters. I want the same function on both pages here to include the second page. We have homepage.html, we have secondpage.html. And I want the same function to be written so nothing changes in here. In other words, I don't want that hard-coded like that. I want to be able to pass from the actual event handler into the function to have it alert whatever I want it to do. So this is where we get into parameters. So let's bring the home page back up here. We're going to drop in an argument in here called MSG, which is our message. I could put ABC in there for all we care. I mean, I can make that anything I want it to be. That's my parameter that I'm passing in. Furthermore, we can have more than one. We can have ABC, we could have DEF, we could have anything, any number of parameters here. And then, of course, we would pass them from down here in that list. But that's getting a little too complicated for right now. But just know we can pass multiple parameters in there. We're going to call ours MSG for message. And I'm actually going to alert the message back out from here. In other words, when that alert is called, that's the thing that's calling that little boom box with the OK button on it. It wasn't a very good bong, was it? But when we pass something from these parentheses and we call this actual function, it locates the function in our code somewhere and passes the value that we put in here up into message. And then, of course, inside the function, noted by the curly braces here, we have this alert that uses the value that was passed up to us. So down here we could put something like, you are going to the second page .html file, like this. And so we've got inside apostrophes in here, and the reason why we're using apostrophes is that's how we put things around a simple piece of text in JavaScript. And notice that the quotes are full quotes out here, so there's a hierarchy to quoting also. So we have the smaller quotes taking place inside. That's one parameter. If I had a second parameter that I wanted to pass, I could put a comma here and do something else, pass either a variable value or a number or something like that. And of course that would require multiple parameters being caught up here. We'll leave that as is for now. Okay, so that's our home page deal. So let's go ahead and save this real quick and see if it works. Let's go back into here. Let's go back to our home page and refresh the document real quick to make sure we're all set up. I'm checking down here also to make sure there's no yellow exclamation point. If you're getting one, it means there's something wrong with your code. And you can double click on the little icon and it'll open up a little box telling you what's wrong. I'll create a problem here in a minute to show you how that works. I'll click link here and look, you are going to the second page.html file, and lo and behold, that's where we end up at. Pretty slick. So what we need to do now is modify secondpage.html to say going back to home page, but we also have to modify the JavaScript here and change it here also. And again, I'm going somewhere with this, with that piece. Let's go ahead and put in going back to home page. My fingers are not working all of a sudden. Now they're good. Okay. So that's that piece. Then we need to come up here and add our parameter. And if you're following along with me, just keep doing so, because we're going to change this here in just a second, the way we would really do it with files. And we'll do that here in just a moment. We're going to split this up. And this will be kind of the bringing it home to show exactly what we can work with multiple files. And so I'm going to go ahead and drop in message here like this. This makes the function reusable, which means I really don't need it in two places. I can put it in one. That's where we're kind of going with this. So let's go back here. Let's go back to the home page. Now, let's click in, going to second page, and now this should tell us we're going back to the home page. And it does. Nice. So we've got a function that's changing behaviors based on which page we're on because of the event handler. We're just simply modifying the argument or the parameter that we're passing to this function we created. This is a basis for a lot of JavaScript. I mean, this is pretty much it. If you understand what's going on here, moving forward with JavaScript is going to be fairly simplified for you. A lot more code, a lot of syntax to get used to, but the concept is there. If you're catching the concept, noticing that I've got an on-click event handler in my HTML tag, and it calls this function up there, and I have the function called show message, all case sensitive and spelled the exact same way, and you understand that we're passing this parameter, and it's being pushed into this variable pretty much right here, and then I can call that variable from within the function to get something to happen. If you're understanding that, you're in great shape. We're good to go. Now let's take it a little further. What we want to do is actually create the script tag here, but I want to tell it that its source is going to equal some file, such as the scripts folder slash my script.js. And I'm making this up as I go. We're going to actually create this folder. So my script.js is the file we're going to have to create. And what are we going to put in that file? We're going to put this stuff right here in that file. Just like we did with the CSS, almost identical. In fact, pretty much identical to the way we did it in the CSS. Not all of our JavaScript code will look just like this, like CSS does with the curly braces wrapped around this particular piece. We'll have if conditions and so forth that we can pass into it. For example, if we don't really care to give a user a message on a link, I might want to leave the parameter empty, and so we can use if conditions, and I'll briefly show that also. So let's take a look at cutting this out of here and basically bringing the closing script tag up to the top here like this, and then of course adding inside of the script tag here a type, just to show some of the things that we could add in here. A little type equals, this would be something like text slash JavaScript, like this. Okay, so we've defined a type. Well, why don't we just go ahead and lose this closing script tag and put a space / at the end of this like this, because we can't. In other tags we can, such as the link tag. That's an HTML tag that says this is a tag. We can open and close. It's an element. The script tag is not really an element. It is a code block starting tag, which means it needs a closing code block tag. When we get into server-side programming, we'll see things like in PHP, you'll see a PHP tag, but it's a code block start that runs on the server environment. You'll see things like an angle bracket with a %sign for the C# VB.NET inline coding examples. This is a script tag. It must close. You must actually physically give it a closing script tag, because generally we see code inside of it like we saw before. In this case, we're calling an outside file that we're going to create, but it's calling an outside file, but it's still a code block. This is a block of code, not HTML code, but actual functional code that must have an open and a close. So you can't get away with the / deal here. Okay, so now let's open up a fresh instance of Notepad, and we're going to right click and paste the code we cut out of there back into here. We'll do a file save as, and we're going to create a scripts folder in our site directory. So I need to go to my C drive, navigate into my test site folder, which is where we started building our website at, and we see a styles folder, and our pages are there. We just need to change it to all files so we see all of our pages. What I need to do is right click, either right click out here in the empty space and choose new, or choose new folder from up here. Either way, it's going to give us the new folder thing. We'll call this scripts, hit enter. That creates our scripts folder. Open this up, and we're now going to save the file as my script.js, and I believe that's what we called it in our code back there. Either way, we can change it to make it match up. So now we have a separate file, just like we did with the CSS files from before. We now have the separate file in here. So now all there's left to do is take this line of code and copy it. Let's go ahead and save that file too real quick to make sure we've saved it. Let's open up our homepage.html and highlight all of the script from script open to script close, right click and choose paste, and now both of our pages are using the script file. And so now if I need to add script functionality to a page, I can put it up in this file and I can make adjustments to it just like the CSS file did. But the real importance of doing it this way for the scripting is so that we don't have script eating up space in our page code. Remember, when we look at things like Google for search engines and things like that, one of the things we have to be aware of is that more code means they don't really like it. Search engines don't like it. So too much code in a page can cause some problems. Having big old blocks of JavaScript inside your web page, which we could end up having, can increase not only the irritation to the search engines, but it increases the file size of each of your web pages. Whereas if I can compress it all into one JS file, then the first time a user hits our website, granted, their browser is going to go back and get this file and hold it in memory, but it's going to cache it. So each subsequent page call after this, the amount of size this could be 150 kilobytes in size, depending on how much scripting we have in there. It's only pulled down once by the client. So it doesn't have multiple hits on our server. It makes our pages run faster after that. If every page in our site is over 150 kilobytes because we have all this JavaScript in it, then we can have a slower situation. So it just makes more sense to compartmentalize things, to group them together. Plus, you may have multiple JavaScript files that do different things for you, so it helps you organize your code as well. But that's that piece there. So let's go ahead and save that file. Let's go ahead and try it out in the browser. Let's go here and just refresh the page. And sure enough, we are going to the second page.html file. So if we go to the second page.html, we click on here, going back to home page. If we right click and view the source code, we'll see that we have a cleaner setup here now, don't we? We have a situation where we have the link tag coming in. We have a script tag coming in, starting to look more like the stuff we looked at in the very first part of this whole series. It's starting to look a lot like that page code. Granted, not as much of it, but look at the setup. We have script tags, we have link tags, we understand what they mean. Down here we have an event handler hooked up inside of an anchor tag. And we're passing a parameter to it, and so now our function is reusable. So anytime I want to show an alert box, I know I can call the show message function that we created, and I can make it dynamic in a sense of how it works. So the next section, we're going to take a look at the if condition real quick to take a look at how that operates, and then from there we're going to move into doing something really slick with div tags and the get elements by ID function within the JavaScript document object model.